One of the top questions you get asked is, will my stock charging system on my bike work with one of these batteries? And of course, why would we make it if it didn't?
Absolutely. And so, yes, pretty simple answer. It absolutely works with a stock charging system. We have yet to find a motorcycle that it doesn't work in. The next question is, how do I charge it if I do discharge it? You know, if I haven't ridden my motorcycle in 6 months, what do I do? Well, in that case, it does require a different charger than what you will probably have in your garage, which is like a tender type device. Been in the business, you know, for many, many years. And so as a result, we had to engineer a maintenance charger specifically for using these batteries.
Now, like if I have a standard charger that I bought at Walmart and I just want to charge it like for a few hours and watch it, we're good to go.
Absolutely, you can do that. In fact, you can do that with a tender type product if you're going to just leave it on for a few hours. The problem is when people essentially think that they can leave this hooked up to their motorcycle for 6 months, that could potentially damage the battery. Not in a safety aspect, but just reduce its capacity because it would just continually charge it. The tender would not know when to shut off. So that would be a problem.
So hence your pacemaker charger for the battery tender sort of application.
Exactly. And so what we did was, you know, we basically just engineered a product specifically designed for lithium iron batteries for use in motorsports applications, and it comes with its own pigtail. And in fact, if you have a older battery tender, you can reuse the harness from that tender on our new charger. So you need to make, you know, minimal changes, and they are available now.
This quick disconnect thing, I think, is very handy.
Sure.
Handy dandy. Why would you, you know, because then you can take it out of your bike if you're storing it, take it in the house.
Absolutely. And in fact, a lot of people do that. If you look at what Barry's team does, is at the end of the day, every day, they just disconnect the battery to make sure that it doesn't inadvertently get drained at the end of the evening. I would imagine that most teams do the same thing. And in fact, these batteries will hold a charge for the better part of a year if they're disconnected. So if you leave that battery on a shelf, it will not lose charge. Again, different from a lead acid battery, which will lose charge very rapidly. You could essentially leave this on a shelf for a year, plug it back in, and you would notice no difference in the way that it starts your bike.
How and why would a battery discharge if you left it in your bike for 6 months, you came back in the spring, and it's been drained?
Right. Well, what happens is that, you know, modern motorcycle has all kinds of power-hungry devices attached to it. An ECU. In a race bike, you have like a traction control system, on and on and on. There's lots of devices involved in running one of these modern motorcycles. Each one of them may or may not pull small amounts of current even when it's off. Simply to maintain the memory in the ECU, it requires a little bit of current. So what'll happen is, over time, that little bit of current adds up to a great big draw. Now, if you ride your bike, say, once a week or every 2 weeks, it's not a problem. But if you walk away for 3 or 4 or 5 months, you could drain your battery. So you basically have two options. One, disconnect it, or use a pacemaker. Either way, you won't have a problem.
Another factor that has come up is that on a lot of sport touring type of applications where people have a bazillion electronic devices, they got the GPS, they got the seat warmer, they got the hand warmer, they got the heated vest, that this kind of a battery, the lead acid, is a big chunky thing designed to power all that stuff.
That's right.
You could potentially run into that with the lithium that's designed for cranking amps.
That's right. These batteries are performance batteries. Their job is to be as small and light and powerful as possible. The job of a lead acid battery is to allow anybody to do basically anything they want to their bike at any time with no adverse reactions, because they're, you know, put there by the manufacturer for the guy who has fog lights installed and every other thing and wants to cruise up and down the strip at Daytona at 1,000 RPM. one thing to remember is that a charging system on most modern motorcycles is not working below about 2,500 RPM. So if your riding consists of idling around very slowly, like on a cruiser, or cruising on a GSX-R 600, this may not be an ideal application. This is really intended to be as small and light as possible while being powerful enough to start the bike that's powering it, right?
Another thing I learned is that if you don't have enough, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
if you don't have enough power in your battery, whatever it is,
Yes.
to charge the fuel system and all of that,
Yeah.
the bike may crank over, but
Right.
it's not enough juice to charge all the systems and it won't start.
That's right. And in fact, one of the things that's really interesting about the lithium systems is that they provide this tremendous cranking capacity, but they also maintain voltage at the same time. And so, as an example, the GSX-R 1000, during cranking, if it goes below about 12 volts, you'll get a reset in the ECU of the secondary throttle butterflies, and then the bike won't run right. Okay, so we found this looking at the data logs, right? So even the P2, which is not an enormous system, doesn't have that problem, and it will never go below 12 volts during cranking, even though it's so small. So that's really the primary benefit. And you can see a lot of the Superbike teams where they used to use a booster battery all the time are no longer, that it's just not a requirement anymore, because they have a 1.6 pound battery that does all of those things. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for Batteries 101. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.